what is this vulnerability and the capacity? Vulnerability is the conditions determined by physical, social, economic, and environmental factors or processes which increase the susceptibility of an individual, a community, or assets or systems with impact of a hazard. On the other hand, the capacity is the combination of all the strengths, attributes, and resources available within that organization or the community or the society to manage or to reduce disasters and strengthen their resilience. What is a natural coastal hazard? Natural coastal hazards is a natural physical phenomenon that exposes the coastal area to risk of property damages or loss of life and environmental degradation like tsunami, cyclone, flooding, sea level rise and saltwater intrusion, which are selected for my study. And these are the objectives of the study: to identify and selected GM divisions of study area for vulnerabilities and capacities, and then to prepare a database, and then provide recommendations to the authorities regarding, and then to prepare vulnerabilities and capacity ranking maps for my study area. This is my study area. It's Negombo in Sri Lanka. And as a typical coastal city, Negombo has very typical social structure, social, economical, and ecological structure. So, socially, Negombo has a very long association with fishery industry. And they basically depend on ocean for anything and everything. And then the population of 48% of the district is living along there. And the population is very high, therefore it's sort of crowded. And many of these fisher folks have very low education. Many of them have below O levels. And then, not only that, 50% of community members are female with multicultural, multinational, and multi-religion background. And there are significant amount of children below 5 years as well as elderly people older than 65 years, plus some SME people also there. And then it has a very heavy cultural heritage, not to mention that smoking and alcohol consumption is very, very high. And then economically, this city is a hub of commercial, educational, and recreational hub actually. And it has a lot of international ties as well as bringing huge amount of foreign money into the country as well. So, as I said earlier, this has their own association with the fishery industry. And then since it's a coastal belt, all of them are living in a below 10 meters long. And ecologically, when you look at there are very important ecosystems out there. For example, when you look at the Rasanjalee, which is a wetland buffer zone, and then Negombo Lagoon, that's a very highly productive ecosystem, and also mangrove with a rich biodiversity. So finally, when disaster happens, what will happen? It will make a huge negative impact on the community. So economically, it's a negative impact not only locally but also to the national level. This is the methodology I used: the data collection and then the database preparation, and then the data analyzing into two sides: vulnerability and the capacity, and finally the capacity and vulnerability ranking. These are the methods of data collection. The primary data were done by interviews, semester interviews, focus group discussions and the questionnaire, and the second data by related authorities. And data collection questionnaire, and this is pre-processing of data using Excel and finally fed into SPSS. And data analysis was mainly done by feeding the data into a pre-designed key with different parameters, and if these different parameters were given certain weightage. So from there we calculated the indices under three main categories: personal profile indicators, 5 of them, capacity 9 of them, and vulnerability 10 of them. So these are the results under personal profile indicators. It's very typical, more women are present there, 54%. And age distribution, you can see actually, and then education, but 14% are below ordinary O-level education, and then making 13% of student population, 18% of student population, and unemployment rate is quite high in that area. And these are the capacity indicators, everything there, in a strength distribution as an arbitrary value as well as a percentage distribution. Same with the vulnerability indicators, 10 of them. And this is the ranking which was done under the UN Habitat 2011 key concept. And then we did some statistical analysis to find out whether is there any correlations between certain parameters. And we were able to find only moderate ones with education level infrastructure, and like that, very weak negative relationship between awareness and the gender and like that. So these are the correlations we were able to find. And this graph was done to find out whether there is a relationship between total capacity as well as the total vulnerability. This was done on MATLAB. And these are the maps done on ArcGIS for total capacity and then total vulnerability. And these are the conclusions. So, with an unemployment rate of 18%, and as a very important one, I want to show the drainage system, which is one of the most learning point there. Households with drainage is only 4% there. It's very understandable because in the one side you have the estuary, the lake lagoon, on the other side you have the ocean. So it may be the natural cause for that. And then recommendations were wherever capacity is lacking, we have to increase it. So what are the things we need to do? So first one, we thought improving the drainage system will be one of the most obvious infrastructure to improve, and then improve education, and then of course enhancing computer literacy, because it was about 22% we found in the study. And then the references and these acknowledgements which are going to make for those people who are helped me throughout. And thank you very much. I studied only vulnerability and capacity, so there is exposure and among the risk factors, I studied only the vulnerability and the capacity. So we have to study the exposure side also, the demographic part. So that also has to be studied to get a full picture of risk. So this is basically social parts. Social standard. So basically what we found, the education and the drainage system is one of the main points. So by increasing the education system, actually even if they find it's difficult to recover, if you happen to have an alternative method of supply yourself, so it will be much easier for them to recover. It will make them to recover easily. Because all the time, and here relocation is impossible. There's no relocation at all. None of them want to live there. Because that's their life, that's their village, they want to live there. And the risk is all the time there because they are living below the 10 meters area always.
Which area you focus?
This is the Negombo area along the coastal belt. So it's in between the lagoon as well as the other side of the ocean.
It's a belt.
It's a coastal belt, but they have very little attack on tsunami because of the geographical reasons. But there is only one way, there are not that many roads, only one road is there to come to Wickramasinghe. That's one of the major reasons. They have to use boats allow the lagoon to escape if they want.
Any damages for these coral reefs and everything?
Coral reefs, that we really don't know right now, but due to tsunami, there's not that much impact.
No, any human interventions like?
Definitely it's there. There are so many studies related to that, yes. Especially the lagoon and the wetland I mentioned there, Wickramasinghe, that part will be damaged so extensively, very badly.
So what are the policy implications then? Like if they are not prepared to relocate, so what are the
Yes. Yes, what we need to do is evacuation has to be very well done. Evacuation has to be well maintained. But and the early warning system has to be perfect. But the Negombo people, they are quite familiar with all sorts of disasters all the time. And they have a way of living there with those disasters. That's the bad part. So maybe we have to have attitude change as well.
Just after the tsunami, 2004.
Gentlemen, so I'm Rasanjalee, presenting the study of influence of antecedents on consumer attitudes towards functional food. So I would like to start with the famous saying of Hippocrates, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." So which means, in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle, we should consume healthy food. My study is also about a particular type of healthy food. So to define the term of functional food, functional foods are an effective way to reduce the risks of some non-communicable diseases, and also it promotes general well-being when consumers move into complex lifestyles. According to Professor Ranavira, medicines, superfoods and fortified foods cannot be considered as functional food. Medicines are not permitted as food. Superfoods are those that are rich in a particular nutrient, while fortified foods can be considered as those that have a nutrient added to boost the naturally present level. And even if you don't know, Botukola, Karavira and turmeric also can be considered as functional food, but the major examples of functional food popularly known in Sri Lanka at present are probiotics, prebiotics, stanols and steroids. Moving on to the background of the issue, food is any nutritious substance that people or animals take or plants absorb in order to maintain their life and growth. But with the evolvement of time, we can see that people have become so busy in their lifestyles that they don't pay much attention to what they consume as food. So they have started consuming burgers, snacks, chips and carbonated drinks that have led to many health issues. So we have come to a point where we cannot be healthy by just consuming healthy food only, because we have been poisoning ourselves over the years with this junk food. That is where functional food comes into play. One of the recommendations of the research and assessment of consumers' knowledge, attitudes and habits in relation to functional foods states that functional food should be promoted among people. Another research done on assessing the factors affecting the extent to which consumers incorporate functional ingredients into their diets states in their conclusion that promoters of functional food should direct their promotions towards the changing attitudes of people. So obviously this is the responsibility of the marketers, but they should have a good understanding of the attitudes of the people about functional food in order to promote it. So based on that, the problem statement was developed as what the antecedents of consumer attitudes towards functional food are and their impact on consumer attitudes towards functional food. Moving on to the theoretical significance, here I have added an antecedent as customer knowledge, which has not been much considered in the area of functional food, which was considered as a limitation in the study by Gasker and Hartley in 2002. And only a few prominent researches being done on the area of functional food concludes the empirical significance in the study. Moving on to the objectives of the study, based on the problem statement I mentioned earlier, are to elucidate the impact of customer knowledge, necessity, safety, confidence, and rewards from functional food on the consumer attitudes towards functional food. And the second is to identify the most influencing antecedent on the consumer attitudes towards functional food. So coming to the literature review, the upper sections I have discussed earlier. So straight away I'll move into the food consumption behavior. So in that, Adson and Fishbane in their study in 2005 have mentioned that examining attitudes is a good way to get a better understanding on consumers' behavior with regard to a particular product, service or an idea. So these are some of the definitions provided by previous literature. And attitude is a psychological tendency that is expressed by evaluating a particular entity with some degree of favor or disfavor, according to Igli, A.H. and Chaikin S. in 1993. And these are the antecedents I have considered in the study, based on which I have developed the hypothesis. Moving on to the first one, customer knowledge and functional food. Here they say that the cost of engaging in health-related behaviors significantly exceeds the cost of conventional behavior. And necessity for functional food is mainly concerned whether the consumers are feeling it is a necessity for the society. And moving on to safety, it is if something negative happens, safety aspects are likely to rise as active parts in terms of functional food. Confidence means that the consumer's confidence to perceive or whether or not to consume functional foods. And rewards from functional food are the feeling that delivered from the use or the benefits from functional food, and it is an attractive attribute to the manufacturers of functional food. And based on those, the conceptual framework was designed like this, and the hypothesis developed from H1 to H5 are based on the antecedents considered: the customer knowledge, necessity, safety, confidence, and rewards from functional food has a significant impact on consumer attitudes towards functional food. And the last one refers to the identification of the most influencing antecedent on consumer attitudes towards functional food. Moving on to the methodology, here I have adapted the Saunders framework in discussing methodology, and the philosophy is positivistic, and the approach is deductive, and the strategy, survey and quantitative method was used using a time horizon of single cross-sectional design, and the data collection and analysis is the technique and the procedure used. And the type of the study is an explanatory study where the study setting is non-contrived. The target population is focused age group of males and females with an age group of 18 to 60 in Sri Lanka. So the sampling element was only taken as the Colombo district. A consumer living in the Colombo district within the age group I mentioned earlier is considered as the unit of analysis, and convenience sampling was used for this study. And correlation analysis, simple linear and multiple linear regression using SPSS was the method of data analysis, while a self-administered structured questionnaire was used with 280 respondents as the sample size. And moving on to testing the measurement properties, the dependent and independent variables were considered to be reliable and valid under the measurements I have used: Cronbach's alpha, composite reliability, and the average variance extracted. And coming to the results and findings, the first table shows the correlation output I have summarized. Hereby we can say that customer knowledge, necessity and safety shows a negative impact on consumer attitudes towards functional food, while confidence and rewards shows a positive impact on consumer attitudes towards functional food. And the second table shows the summary of the output from simple linear regression I have run for the individual antecedents considered under the study, and all of them are proved to be significant, while 1.9% of the variation of consumer attitudes towards functional food is explained by customer knowledge, and 17% by necessity, 4.4% by safety, 19.5% by confidence, and 53.3% by rewards. Moving on to the most influencing antecedents, which was identified from multiple linear regression, is considered to be rewards, which is 0.695 with the coefficient. And recommendations and conclusions are that customer knowledge of consumer attitudes is very low compared to the other antecedents. So we can see that in the Sri Lankan context, this might be due to the poor knowledge they have regarding functional food, and this might be due to the lack of properly promoted functional foods in Sri Lanka. And the next one is also necessity, which also have a negative impact, but this also can be due to the lack of proper marketing strategies in promoting them. And the coefficient of safety implies a big negative impact, but here it complies with the previous literature because the consumers seem to be aware of the possibility that the use of functional food may have risk, but the possible risks do not affect the evaluated behavior tendency. Moving on to confidence and rewards, they also comply with the previous literature, giving out positive impact on the consumer attitudes towards functional food. So my recommendation is that in Sri Lankan context, we need to promote as marketers, the manufacturers should focus in promoting them, improving the product category in Sri Lanka. These are the references I have considered under the study. So thank you very much.
Convenience sampling is used when we don't expect high accuracy or reliability. So these are things you have to use a probabilistic approach. And the data analysis, as I always say, the empirical data is selected and use the numerical data analysis techniques, that means Pearson correlation, multiple regression, and all these stuff are wrong. Please learn the basic statistical techniques from a good textbook or from a knowledgeable person and read the analysis.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I want to recorrect it again. As Dr. Samanthi said, the categorical data and numerical data. And first, you can use this for correlation, Spearman rank correlation, right? And if you want, why you are searching for factors, why you love this multiple regression so much, like your boyfriend? Why management people always multiple regression? Why they are like your lovers or you cannot leave them?
May I disturb? There was no multiple regression, only single linear regression she had.
Whatever the regression, what is the reason of putting regression?
Not the multiple she had.
What is the regression? Anyway, in regression, or what is the use of putting a regression? What is the use? Why you are using regression? That's my question. There should be a reason. Everyone is putting, we are also putting. What is the use of learning? There should be a reason.
Like literature, so you are a young researcher, the senior people have made this mistake.
And you are following the same mistake. That is the problem.
The thing is, correlation analysis is to find the relationship between the variables. Regression analysis is to forecast some independent variable based on those independent. So regression analysis need not to be used for see the correlation between the variables. That's what it says.
And if you want to forecast something, then okay, of course you can use simple or multiple regression. But if you want to forecast this, your data is categorical, you can use logistic regression. Simple. You can use simple logistic regression, no multiple logistic regression. There is no assumptions to be tested, only the goodness of it test and the model significance, that's all. And it shows the probability estimation, not point estimation or not interval estimation, just the probability estimation. So it is very easy. Don't follow the same patterns, wrong patterns followed by others. Right? In economics, you have learned about consumers are rational, but the researchers should be rational. Right? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
President, if you have any comments or your reflection with regard to their
May we have the honor of inviting Dr. Rasanjalee, the chair of this session, to present the certificate to the presenters. KK Sogusman. MMSSM Fernando. RMKS Rasanjalee. Thank you, sir. So please remain on stage. And also we cordially invite the co-chair of the session, Dr. Siva Maheshwaram, on stage. And now I would like to invite Dr. Chaminda Vijaytilaka, the head of the department, Management and Finance, to present the token of appreciation to the session chair, Dr. Atula Ekanamika, and the co-chair, Dr. Siva Maheshwaram.